bring the energy up as you put your hands together for our next speaker, Meg Grett-Pratt. Let's give it up.
Thank you. Thank you, Bill. Thank you, everybody. All right. So, Mr. What did you want to be when you grew up? I know I changed my mind 1,000 times because that's what I do. But there were a couple things that just really stood out in my life and things I was like, oh. And one of those things was being a cocktail waitress. I'm looking around, not everyone's saying like, yeah, me too. Yeah, yeah. Woohoo! I have something to do with the poofy hair, the makeup. They had those outfits. They always wore those short skirts and then the high heels. I don't really know where I got this fascination with cocktail waitresses because my parents were alcoholics. We didn't eat all of our meals in bars. I don't know where they came from, but I got to live the dream when I was in college. For a couple years, I was a cocktail waitress, and okay, it wasn't all it was cracked up to be, but I lived the dream. My other aspiration was to be a supermodel. Again, don't judge here. I was 5 foot tall. I am 5 foot tall. 5 foot tall in 3rd through 5th grade was the tallest girl in the whole school. I thought I was on my way to be a supermodel. I kind of had given up that dream, and I wanted to grace the cover of magazines, but I let it go, let the dream fade. As I graduated, the shortest person in our class. Yeah. Just by the time I get up there, it's been long in my thoughts about no supermodel. I became a movie star. Now, I wasn't just cast as an extra. I was the main character in this movie. The day I found out, I didn't have champagne bottles popping in the background, celebrating this thing. I was terrified. It was a day that I'll never forget. I stood there, heat rushed through my body. I kind of imagined it in my head that it was like being struck by lightning. I have a mind that races 1,000 miles an hour already, but it was going faster than I'd ever had it go. I was searching frantically for anything at all to respond to what I just heard. The only thing that was coming to me was run. The voice in my head was screeching, run! Run for your life! But I stood there, frozen, like a statue, paralyzed by the fear. I just kept hearing him say, I saw you in your car. It was like a foreign language. I had no idea. But I felt like a game contestant sitting there frantically looking for, again, trying to solve this puzzle, and the buzzer's counting down, and then it goes from a silent buzzer to like, meh, meh. It's, that's the alarm, the car alarm, or the fire alarm's noise. Trying to figure out, what is he talking about? But the pressure built up, and I stood there, and I came up, and then suddenly some words finally came out. I don't understand what you're talking about. That wasn't what the judge was looking for. That infuriated him. He grabbed his tablet, and like a bull, he charged right over to me and shoved it in my face, like a pie to the face. I couldn't see, but I could hear something kind of starting, and it was like a video was playing. As I was there, I was thinking, okay, what is that noise? Oh, there's something familiar about that. Was that me? I pulled back a little bit, and I could see that was me, and that was Jay. It was in my car. We were laughing and talking. It was us the previous weekend going to the bank. No big deal. It just got scarier after that. As he pulled away, I could see that it wasn't no longer the video wasn't playing on that screen. There were about 12 screens, little mini screens on the tablet. I glanced over. I could see there was my office, my bedroom, the bathrooms, the porch. I couldn't recognize all of them, but there was the cameras just waiting. They were all in standstill at the moment. They were waiting for the star to arrive. I didn't know what to do. I remember thinking, what is happening here? The night got scarier. He ran to throw me around the apartment from hard surface to walls. I'd go down, he'd come over and kick me until I could scramble to get back up. Something in me told me, don't fight back, and don't yell, don't respond, because it's my nature. This went on for hours, but I continued to get up. Even when he cold clocked me and I went down like a rag doll, I didn't stay down there for long because I saw that steel-toed boot coming for my face. At 12:21, they put the handcuffs on him. This was a preview. It was a PG version of the horror flick that was to come in the next 7 years. Those cameras weren't enough for him, rolling 24 hours a day. He'd also installed spyware, so he could see through my phone, through my laptop, through my tablet. He could not only see what I was doing, but he could now hear what I was doing when he turned on the microphone. He could see the text, he could see the emails, he could go through my social media. Turning on and off the camera and the microphone was one of his favorite things. But then there was also moving things. As you're sitting there typing, and your mouse keeps moving all over and getting into different parts of the pages, they're turning it on and off at will. I learned that movie had been rolling for some time now, and it wasn't a movie that was going to come to a theater near you. It was streaming 24 hours a day, 7 days a week to the dark web. It lived among those other videos, those X-rated videos, or those other illegal acts that are happening on the dark web. This had been going on for quite a while. He'd been tracking me even before we started dating. There was no escaping him. I felt like between the phone, the cameras, there was no escaping him. I would run, he would find me. I would replace my car. It didn't take very long for him to realize I wasn't driving the car any longer. And he would break in, he would smoke his pot in the car and leave that smell lingering. So I knew he knew that I had a new vehicle. If I had a new apartment, which I moved a lot of times, then he would just come in, again, make it somewhat obvious that he'd been there, and install the cameras, and it would continue going on. Not a single day went by in 7 years that he didn't remind me that he was there, and he could get to me at any point, at any time. I even stayed in safe houses, but if there's a cellular signal or a wireless signal, he could get to me. He was there. Everyone kept saying over those years, he's gonna get bored. It'll stop. But it kept going every day, over and over. Every year, I kept getting worse and worse. I went from here and a downward spiral. I was in therapy at minimum twice a day, 4 days a week. I took pills, tons of pills, anxiety pills, depression pills. You name it, I had a handful of pills just to get through the day, from sleeping pills. From that horrific night on, I lived in a constant state of fear of being killed, or wondering when he'd attack again. In 2019, I made a final move home to live with my mom. This was a different kind of move. I had been moving my stuff, trucks loads of stuff, people help me move my stuff, thinking every time I'd get a new start. But this time, I started selling off all my things. I sold off my beds, I sold off the furniture, I sold as much as I could sell. I kept a few kind of sentimental items, but I had my clothes and my makeup when I left that time. I was so tired. And my mind hurt, my body hurt from being in fight and flight all the time. In my mind, it was never gonna stop. It'd been 7 years, it was never gonna stop. March of 2020, I sat outside on the porch, smoking cigarette after cigarette, tears rolling down my cheeks. But tonight, as I looked up at those flashing lights that hovered above me every night since I'd moved back, I didn't hide from them. I made eye contact, and I smiled. I forced a smile. And I waved. I was waving goodbye. There was not gonna be tomorrow night. There was not gonna be cameras rolling. I wouldn't have to face this any longer. As I got up, I went to bed. There was a peace that came over me that night that I hadn't felt in years. When I went to bed, I wasn't gonna sit awake, my eyes open, like fighting it, thinking as soon as you close your eyes, worry that he'd come and get me. I didn't have the loaded gun under my bed. I didn't lock all the doors. I didn't put all the alarms on. I just went to bed and I slept. The next morning I got up, and I had a plan. I went upstairs to have coffee and watch the news with my mom one last time and tell her how much I loved her. But when I went up, she wasn't watching her CBS News. She was flipping the channels. All that was happening that day, all that was on every channel was this breaking news. The coronavirus had gone public. Now there was a new monster in town, threatening to kill anyone and everyone. It didn't care who you were. It had no mercy. It was just about destruction. Just like my stalker. He didn't care. No one was safe. You could run and hide. You still were in danger of being killed. Everyone lived with that fear, consumed by that fear of dying. I wasn't afraid. I was ready to die. So I didn't get in my car that day and drive away. I stayed glued to that television day after day, learning all the tips and tricks. Couldn't let this happen to my family. My kids, my mom, my dad, my sister. It was an unbearable thought. So instead, I focused on what I could do. I cleaned things. I gave them the news. I was the enforcer of the rules. You must wear your mask. No one wanted to hear that from me, but that was what I did. I literally did that for hours. I couldn't bear the thought. The reason I couldn't bear the thought of it was because they were hours away, my family, from getting their life back. They've been affected by this whole thing as well. Even though it wasn't directly happening to them, it destroyed their lives. And they were just mere hours that morning away from having their life back and it being normal again. A couple weeks flew by. I think if you remember the virus, and it just flew by. All this stuff was every day was some sort of news. So I hardly noticed until one morning I was sitting there brushing my teeth and something was different. And I realized the absence of that monster. It hadn't been there. My messages weren't read in the morning. I couldn't recall the drone. I didn't know what to think about it. Was this real, or was this just another one of his mind games? So I didn't tell my family. I just kind of kept it inside thinking, I'll wait and see. But then something happened. One night after everyone gotten home, everyone's faced the virus, their masks, everyone's exhausted. Everyone was sitting around in the living room, my kids, my mom, and they started laughing. And they were laughing and they had a belly laugh and people were snorting. For the life of me, I wish I could recall what had been said that night to make them do that. You see, I hadn't smiled in years. I forced a smile often, just for them, to make them say, I'm okay. But they'd gotten used to that kind of awkward smile. After, they were doing it, it went on, the offer went on, and I started laughing myself. For a couple seconds, and then they all stopped. They stopped laughing and started staring at me. They looked at me like parents, like a toddler trying to take their first steps, like kind of an awe moment. They looked happy. They looked relieved. I had to blurt out that moment what I had discovered. That they just stopped. It wasn't going on anymore. We all got silent, and then we just let that wave come in over us. It was relief. It was happiness. It was true. Had the coronavirus actually defeated that monster? Was this new monster had more power than the stalker? They'd collided. I don't know. I don't know what happened. That summer, the coronavirus continued to terrorize the world. It grew worse. It got more aggressive. After 7 years, that summer, I started coming back to life. I went outside and enjoyed the sun day in and day out. I wasn't afraid of getting kidnapped or killed if I went outside and I was so exposed. I let the sun soak in, and I went from that pasty, death-like look I had going on, from being inside and hiding all the time, to a healthy glow. At the end of that summer, I wasn't 100%. Looking back now, I know. But I felt 1,000 times better than I'd felt in years, mentally and physically. And the pain that my body was feeling started to slowly disappear. In 2021, about a year later, I founded Dating Tips by Meg to prevent this from happening to other people, raise awareness on dating abuse and stalking, because I hadn't known. 1 in 3 women, 1 in 4 men will experience violence or stalking sometime during their life. I'm certain that none of you growing up ever said, I want to be a statistic when I grow up. Everything we experience in life shapes and forms our opinions of what's happening in the world, and maybe influences what we do. Those 7 years definitely made an impact on me. They changed the way I thought about things, but for the better. Sometimes in life we win, and other times we learn. I didn't win in those 7 years, but now what I learned, that's my win. I learned so much. This invaluable information. Not only can I prevent myself from having this, but I can prevent it from happening to other people. It's invaluable, and I share it with the world. And I think that's a win. It's a win-win, because I want to make the world a better place, a safer place. I think all the knowledge over those years, all of the knowledge I gained would give me a PhD in dating violence and stalking. I learned so much. Now, getting up here and talking and sharing your story, it isn't for everybody. Public speaking is up there at the top of the list of things people fear, followed by death. It's not for everyone, but we all need to change the world. So I had another big win in this when this all stopped. And I want to share that with you, because I think each and every one of you has the power to change the world. And you can start today. I wasn't a bad person before. I was kind to people. I didn't do things intentionally to, cruel. But I wasn't the kindest person in my head. I had thoughts sometimes that I wouldn't share with somebody because I didn't want them to see or know maybe that thought. I call it the Walmart thing. The lady with the screaming kids. The sweatpants, the hair not done, and you're like, they're in front of you, you're like, oh, for God's sake. Yeah. But now, my thoughts are different. I can actually consciously see my thought shift, and I think about, wow, maybe she just escaped last night. That's all she had. That's what she was wearing. She was in her car last night. Now her kids are hungry. They're tired. They didn't sleep either. So they're in there as Walmart trying to figure out something to eat this morning. That's all she's thinking about. That's all she has in her mind. So I'm a little kinder. I consciously can see my thoughts say, no. Think about, you don't know what's happening to anybody. You don't know their story. At any given moment, it could be the worst day of their lives happening, and they've just survived. Is that when I say that person, instead of looking away or being obnoxious or having my eyes roll back in my head, I smile. Share a smile. A smile has the power to change someone's world, to give people hope. The smile is a universal language for happiness and kindness. It doesn't cost you a thing. It's very easy. So right now, I want you to face the person you're at the table with and look at them in the eyes real quickly and then smile. All right, turn back to the front. Now, maybe that was a little bit uncomfortable just because it's in close proximity, and so you don't have to go about like being right in people's face.
Oh. We're supposed to do that?
If you're really low, you can just. But you can. Well, all you have to do is that instead of like looking away as you're passing someone in the parking lot or on your way to work, you look up, you make that quick eye glance, and you smile. I know that the smile changed my life because I was not the Walmart lady. I didn't have the kids and screaming, but I wasn't exactly polished and standing up strong when I was in the stores. I was one of those people that feel like, what's going on with her? This is the way we can add kindness and happiness back to the world. Sharing your smile is a small act of kindness, spreading happiness to the world, one smile at a time. You never know what someone's going through. Spread kindness. It doesn't cost you a thing. I want to thank those monsters that came into my world, because after everything they did, everything that happened, I'm grateful for who I've become. I also want to thank my mom, my son, my daughter, because they never gave up on me. They believe in me. They keep cheering me on in this venture to help save the world. They haven't lost hope in me. So thank you. And in a world where monsters do exist, so do miracles.
Absolutely.
Thank you. Thank you.